Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Mugwump Tower, this is Albatross 1-3, requesting permission to land. Over.
I don't need a computer to tell me how to land a damn airplane.
6.
Heads-up display, check.
5,
Lasers, check.
4,
Particle beam, check.
3,
Photon bolts, check.
2,
Chair control, check.
1.
Let's do it.
Broadcasting from a secret underground location somewhere in Mos Eisley, this is the Docking Bay 77 podcast. Make yourself comfortable. The show is about to start. Hello and welcome to the Docking Bay 77 podcast. I am your host, Dayton Johnson. We've had documentary filmmakers, photographers, award-winning sci-fi writers, and fantasy writers. Now we can add writer, director, producer, and playwright to that list. Her latest film, South of Hope Street, is streaming on multiple platforms currently. Hello and welcome to Jane Spencer. How are you? And thanks for spending time with us.
No, you're welcome, and thank you for having me.
All right, fantastic. So we're going to spend a little time getting to know Jan, and then we'll talk about her film. So let's start. So in your film, your main character, Denise, reads a lot for pleasure, both, Sidney Plath and a lot of poetry. Tom listens to music to help kind of deal with reality. What do you like to do for fun? How do you pass your time when you're not making films?
Trying to make films. When I'm not making films, I pass my time on the phone, talking to investors and producers and God knows. But actually, to relax, I guess I listen to music, and I do like to read. Poetry. I do. I maybe I do a lot of what she does, only I'm not living in the corner,
Right.
which they have. I have her in various corners of rooms, but I think I've always loved literature, and I like to actually read it in books. I don't particularly like it on the computer, and after a while my eyes are and I like to just music is very important, of course, to kind of unwind.
I agree.
Eric Satie gets you kind of relaxed, and you're doing that.
Yeah, with my job as a mail carrier, I have 7 hours a day where I get to listen to podcast music and audiobooks, and that's how I keep my.
Oh, that's great!
Yeah,
that's great. What a great job, though. If that's
that's the benefit of the job.
That's what you're doing. I can't think of anything better. Yeah, absolutely. Are you kidding? That would be wonderful for me.
Right?
I would do it. What was it? Jim Jarmusch did a film about a guy working with the mail carrier. He was a mail carrier, and he was listening to. He was what was it called? It was with Adam Driver.
Oh,
something New Jersey. But he was a poet in the movie.
Right.
Very, very interesting, though. I think probably he was doing his writing and thinking.
Yeah,
while he was driving.
Yeah, it's I learned early on that if I didn't have something to listen to while I was working, and then my brain kind of went off on its own way, and that's not always the best thing to do. So.
Oh yeah, no, God no, not in this day and age.
Agreed.
With all the wonderful, bizarro things that are going on in the world. But
yes. Yeah. All right, so cool. Many of the filmmakers we discussed on the podcast have had a moment or a film they saw that kind of set them on their path. For Spielberg, it was The Greatest Show on Earth. For Edgar Wright, it was American Werewolf in London. Was there a play or a film that kind of started you on your path?
Actually, it was a film, but the film was kind of something that was made before. I mean, not long before, but before I was born. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
I saw it late night television on Movie Channel. It was on the waterfront.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah.
Which was black and white with 1950s actors I had never really seen, but I didn't even know who Marlon Brando was or any of these people. I was just mesmerized by something, and I'm trying to figure out what. To this day, I'm like, well, I think actually more than anything else, there was a mood and an atmosphere that was caught in that movie of a time,
right?
And I guess the 1950s. But this whole black and white, beautiful cinematography, wonderful score by Leonard Bernstein. And I didn't really think much about it. I was a kid. I didn't know all the, but it mesmerized me. And I started thinking, wow, that's a whole world. And I loved the actors in it. And Eva Marie Saint's hair was so blonde in the black and
Right.
white, and it was beautiful. And later, I still love that film. I've seen it several times, actually quite a few times since then. And ironically and weirdly, when I went to New York finally to study writing, I
Right.
got involved at the Actors Studio, the playwrights directors unit, which was run by Elia Kazan, who
Right.
made On the Waterfront,
Right.
the director. So I was like, oh my God, it was working for me. I saw that, and yeah, he did all those great films, of course, East of Eden,
Right.
On the Waterfront, all
Right.
these just genius films that are streetcar
Right. Oh yeah.
classic films. He was
Right.
very old by the time I got there, but he was pretty dynamic even in his 80s. So,
Oh
you know,
wow, that's fantastic.
so that happened. Yeah, it was kind of crazy, really. I thought, oh, he made On the Waterfront.
Right.
So that happened, and with plays, I saw a play called Happy Days by not the TV show, but by Samuel Beckett,
Okay. Right.
and it kind of influenced this sense of absurdity in life. And I've seen it, several productions of it, but it's really brilliant and kind of fits a lot of what we're all going through and the experience of being alive. So,
Gotcha.
have you seen it or do you know about it?
I have not seen that
It's a
play. No.
fascinating play.
No. I will have to check it. I'm sure. One of our regular guests, one of our regular hosts, Robert, is a big. He's big into Broadway and musicals and plays. So I'm sure I will have find him and he will guide me to
Ask
find.
him about the absurdist Samuel Beckett, Waiting for Godot.
Right.
But it wasn't Waiting for Godot. It was Happy Days. So that was very interesting to me.
Okay.
In fact, it influenced the film I made, South of Hope Street.
Gotcha.
So on a
Fantastic.
certain level.
All right. Awesome. All right. Well, you mentioned the Actor Studio. You also studied at Texas University and New York University.
You know,
Of those three institutions, which one actually had the biggest impact on your career?
the Actors Studio.
Okay, I figured.
I think the Actors Studio because, of course, at university it's great, but you're kind of with people. You're all on the same level pretty much. But when I walked into the Actors Studio, I immediately saw Paul Newman and Kazan and De Niro would come in, and I was just a little student person,
Right.
in awe of watching them actually talk about art and work. And so I think it gave me a lot, like I was there a couple of years, and it gave me a lot of understanding of what they really went through as artists to create what they had created and were creating. So I was very lucky. I was very lucky.
Wow.
So I never got one of my plays done, but yeah, but it was pretty interesting to watch. Lots of stories,
Yeah.
But Joseph L. Mankiewicz would come in, who
Okay,
did
really?
All About Eve and all.
Wow.
He would come in. He's really old, really old. A lot of very old people were there, and I was like 26, 24, 25, and I saw these very old legends come in
Yes.
and discuss plays and what they were doing. So that was interesting to me. And
Yeah.
I guess it really influenced me a lot. Also, if you see the actors work, how they worked and how they got to their emotions was method acting. And it was really interesting to see how that worked, which looked like kind of an insane asylum, but it was really interesting. Screaming, throwing themselves on the floor. I was like, okay. But it was all to get at certain emotions and things. Very interesting.
Okay, fantastic. Now you mentioned Kazan, you mentioned Beckett. What other who are your favorite filmmakers and playwrights, and how do they influence your work?
Oh, well, like everybody else, my favorite filmmaker is Fellini.
Okay, right.
Every filmmaker I talk to says Fellini because he was like a perfect combination of kind of a metaphysical stuff in his films,
Right.
plus a plot, an actual kind of a meandering plot, but a plot, and surrealism and just emotional movies. Very, like, I'm very, very moved if you watch La Strada. The last scene in La Strada is just goes on to the beach and realizes he's such a tiny little creature in the universe and
Right.
cries. That
Right.
it got me. When I saw that, I was like, wow, he got the whole thing in one take, this one moment. And that's how Fellini would do it. He would do the whole film, and you're like, where is this going? But it's all fascinating, but where is it going? And then at the very end, he would put something on there that said, aha, that's what this whole film was about. It's about, and then he wraps it up so beautifully. La Dolce Vita, it's the same kind of ending where she,
Right.
I don't know if she looks at the camera as she's looking at Marcello Mastroianni and says, come to the spiritual side. Don't just be a hedonist and materialist. So that
Right.
to me was, wow. But he's also entertaining.
Right.
And he got it. So he had it all, because there's some great filmmakers, they have all that, but they're not so entertaining. Sometimes they're more like preaching to you, or they're quite frankly very boring, like watch my potato kind of, you just sit there waiting for something to happen, but he had everything. So he's my favorite filmmaker. So I've had coffee, so I'm really talking.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah.
I'm really talking a lot.
I have some coffee too. That's quite all right.
Oh yeah, I've been like, okay, you asked me a question, I'll go into detail. But yeah, Federico Fellini is my favorite. I love David Lynch. I love David Lynch.
Right.
He kind of had a similar quality, but even more. He was more bizarre for sure.
Yes, he
But he
was.
really got it with The Elephant Man.
Oh, I love
Beautiful,
The Elephant
beautiful
Man.
film.
Yeah, I love that film.
Ah, beautiful film. And but he got that emotional but weird world of this man, and with those weird black and white sections with the elephant and the mother and all that. He was a genius. He was, I met him once in my
Okay.
life, which I was directing an actor named Crispin Glover,
Yep,
who's
I
a
know
really
him.
unusual actor.
Yes, he
And
is
he was
very
close.
unusual.
Oh yeah. He, he's very unusual, but he's very talented. He's very talented. But I was looking at his scene and I felt kind of weird in my editing room. I turned around, there's David Lynch. Because Crispin had asked him to come to the editing room. I know. I was just like, my first movie, and I was kind of in shock, and I thought, oh, he's looking at my film. He's David Lynch,
Right.
But he seemed to like it. He said he liked it, the one scene he saw. So it was my first film, Little Noises, and
Right.
but he definitely had an energy, a very interesting energy that you could feel in the room with you.
Right. I'm sure.
So he was very into all that stuff, meditation and all this stuff. Fascinating. But I love David Lynch, and Martin Scorsese's a wonderful director, obviously.
Right. Obviously, yes.
Hit and misses, in my opinion, but
Yes.
many more hits than misses.
Agreed.
And
Agreed.
that's okay if you get to be 80 something years old and you can't make every film a masterpiece, which people don't understand.
Right.
That every film might not be as great as his most brilliant films. And but I think he's a great filmmaker, and also seemed to be a filmmaker with a lot of humility and
Right. I've
more
heard that.
interested in film than probably anybody I've heard. I love Andrei Tarkovsky
Okay.
movies, but boy, they're incredible, incredibly powerful visually. So
Okay.
I love him. So those are the filmmakers. They're all guys. I know I should name a woman. Of
Well,
women, I'd say Agnes Varda.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
she's great too. Although filmmaker is a filmmaker, right? Women or man, but
Yep. You mentioned Little Noises was your first feature film. You mentioned Crispin Glover. Of course,
yes,
most people know him from Back to the Future. Rick Mayall.
yeah.
Now, I'm of a certain age, so I watch The
Oh,
Young Ones all the time, and of course, Drop Dead Fred. Tatum O'Neal was famous because she had a famous dad. She had her own career. Now, as a first feature film with, I can only imagine some egos and some names. What
oh
was
yeah.
was that a bit a bit overwhelming for your first feature?
Yeah, I called it director's boot camp
Right.
because I came from the theater. I came from
Right.
the theater, and it's very structured. And I get on a set with a bunch of Hollywood actors, except for Rick, who was the most structured of them all.
Oh, really?
Ironically,
Yeah.
Rick, and I know the young ones. I love
Oh,
the young
I own the DVDs. I've owned them for years. I love that show.
ones. I saw reruns of it when I was in college.
Yep.
Casting director hire. I said I said get Rick Mayall for this role, and she's like, "Who's that?" And I went, England, young one. She didn't know it, but I loved her, Deb Aquila, and she brought him over. And so I had Rick Mayall suddenly, but he turned out to be he wasn't Rick from the young ones. And I was so surprised. He was such a family man. He brought his kids and his wife, and
Oh, really?
he was and the crazy, yeah, he wasn't like Rick. He was a kind of a family man kind of guy. And I was like, what? And, but I loved him. I mean, he did wonderful work. And we had Crispin was probably the most eccentric actor I ever worked with to this day.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
And he really was. No, it wasn't an act. He's really, but what's amazing about Crispin is he, without trying, he can get into kind of a surrealistic feel. He's got this magic, really. If you look at Back to the Future, I think Crispin is one of the main reasons it was successful.
Oh, yeah.
More than the other actors. He brought something like I don't know how to describe it, surrealism to the movie, like a weird quality to the movie, and really brought it alive. And so Crispin's a great actor. He's a very unusual person, very. And Tatum is a sweetheart, a lovely person. She was struggling at that time, going through some stuff personally,
Right.
but she really, yeah, I saw her not that long ago again. We had lunch in Los Angeles, 20 something, 25, I don't know, years later, I saw her. And she was just, she had gone through a lot in her life.
Oh, yeah.
And with an early start at Oscar at 11 years old, father and she wrote about this, so it's no secret, was jealous. She got the Oscar and gave her a really not so good time. She had a very difficult family life, let's put it that way. But yeah, I really like her. I think she's a real survivor, has gotten through everything. And yeah, but it was difficult because it was my first film. These people had done many films and television. So for me, it was a little bit overwhelming, but I got through it. I lived through it.
And you're better for it.
Because they were all like, we ended up at Sundance, which was really nice, but
Right.
earlier when Sundance wasn't so much about, all films that already had distributors
Right.
and that had celebrities running around and doing celebrity parties and Nepo baby parties and all this stuff. Although there are some Nepo babies that are really talented. But anyway, it was a big surprise to me, because I thought it would be more structured like the theater, but it wasn't. It was mad. So with many personalities, including the producers' personalities. So yeah, it was a big learning experience. I have very big fondness for that film. It's your first film. I look at it and I go, uh-oh, that's not, I should have cut that.
Right.
We all do this as directors. It's like years later, what the hell did I leave that in for, and stuff. But I'm really happy with it. Kind of upset with the producer because he has the rights. Because I gave away the rights, which I've never done again after that. I always produce on my own movies now. Learn my lesson. And so I was kind of upset because he just kind of doesn't do enough with it. So I'm trying to work out something right now with him so that I can get it out there again.
Yeah. Well, I was trying to go back and watch your films, but unfortunately the one I could find to watch is actually your recent one. So I wasn't able to go find the other one. So
yeah. That's one of the reasons as a producer of Little Noises. I'm actually in an ongoing argument with him for 25 years. he's kind of sitting on it. And I said, let's make you need to digitize it. And
Yeah.
he's like, I'm not going to do that. It's, and I'm like, fine, I will do it. Then give me the rights and I'll do it because it'll be a significant investment. And he's
Right.
like, no, you can't have the rights. So there's all this thing going on. And I'm probably going to have to hire a lawyer, but it's my first film and I really love it. So I'm not going to let him sit on it. Let's put it
Right.
that way. I'm not even sure if he holds the rights anymore because
Okay.
his company dissolved. So we'll see. He'll probably hear this and go after me, but I don't care, Brad. So that's one thing. I do not care. Try it. Then there is the other producer was really nice, but it's just people don't want, to him, it's not that important, but to me, it's very important. It's my first film.
Right.
And my other film, The Ninth Cloud, it was released, but very minimal release. And then we want to get it onto Netflix and stuff.
Right.
So we're doing a thing with that. So that's why you haven't found it, because we want it to go out on another platform. I know. We got a lot of great reviews. We were in a lot of festivals.
Mhm.
And then Faces on Mars is an experimental film. So that was only at a few festivals. We didn't even, it's not a film that, although now there are so many great platforms you can put your film out on, we might put Faces out.
Right.
It's funny as hell. A film about artists in Silver Lake living in a room, and it's really funny, any place, because it's a bizarre film. It doesn't have stars in it, but really good actors in it. And then we have then South of Hope Street, which we premiered it, and we showed it theatrically in England and in Los Angeles. We had a great premiere in Westwood. Very nice premiere in Westwood. And then, but for me, it's wonderful that the film gets out, but I'm one of these people, I want it in a theater.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And you can only do limited release right now with theater. And it's really because after COVID, nobody goes back to the theaters anymore, and they all buy giant televisions, or
Yeah.
screens for home, which
See,
is
it does
fine. I
go
do
hard.
it too.
Well, I love going to the theater. To me, I call movie theater my church. I don't go as often as I used
Me
to,
too. Yeah.
but I do. There's the whole experience. The smell of the popcorn. Getting your seat, and yeah,
The
there's
popcorn. Absolutely.
yeah, there's 20 minutes of trailers. That's all
Of
part of the
course,
experience. So but
those are kind of fun. Those are kind of fun.
yeah,
I have to say, people do go to the theater here in Europe. I mean, they go. Every time I go to an art film in Zurich, Switzerland, it's packed in the theaters.
right,
And because I can go all these different cities, and it's quite packed. I go to LA, nobody's going to the theater, and it's irritating. Yeah, I think I'm hoping that possibly people will start going to the
yeah,
theater again,
yeah.
like they've gone to vinyl, with music.
Yeah, I have a well, one of the things on the podcast we like to push is physical media. I have over 300
Hmm.
records. My wife and I
Oh
have
my,
1,000 DVDs and Blu-rays, and we collect books. So
oh my God,
yeah, we're big supporters of the podcast is big supporters of physical media,
it's
for
great.
multiple reasons. Because a lot of movies you want to go find, and you go to stream them, and they're nowhere to be found. So it's
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and there's certain versions of the movie you can't find anymore, and so it's just nice to know that we are building a collection, a library that
Oh, that's
you know
amazing.
so but yeah,
That's
it's important.
It's super important, and it's something that everybody's thinking about. I mean, certainly Scorsese's thinking about it with all
Yep.
his preservation of films, and I think Criterion Collection,
Yep.
they're doing it, and all these, they're keeping these films because you wonder, okay, once it's digital, how long will it last? You make your film on digital,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like
Oh, yeah.
film, you've got film, and it's going to ruin at some point too, but hundreds of years, maybe,
Right.
if you're
Right.
lucky.
Right.
So yeah, it's Little Noises was done on 35 millimeter film,
Right.
and it was a great experience. It's much more beautiful than digital for me. And then I did my film, The Ninth Cloud, I did also on 16 millimeter film.
Okay.
And I did it on purpose. Everybody was saying you have to do digital, digital, digital. I said, I don't want to do it digital. I want to do, this is what I want to do. And it was hilarious because when we were selling it to the television stations, they were like, this doesn't look perfect. This doesn't look like digital to me. And I'm like, it's not supposed to. It's 16 millimeter and it's going to be a little rough
Right.
because it's a style. And
Right.
it was really difficult to get them to accept a non completely perfect visual. Yet they'll take like an early Jim Jarmusch film because it's Jim Jarmusch, you know,
Right.
and it's very rough. It's rough looking, you know,
Right.
and beautiful quite often. So that's just what we have to put up with right now, or people think that everything needs to be sharp and focused. And no,
No.
no, there are such great films that they're kind of, you know, they're film and there's more depth of field and
Oh yeah.
feel for it. Yeah, so I'm really weird about that. I like film. My next one I don't think I'll be able to shoot it on film because the problem is all the theaters are set for digital,
Yeah.
except for Quentin Tarantino's
Well,
theater. He's just doing them. He said bring 35 millimeter film and so or 16 millimeter film and I'll screen it, you know, at his New Beverly cinema in
which is
LA.
fantastic. That's just,
So
I mean, I would love to make a pilgrimage out there just to go see some movies at his theater. That'd be fantastic.
yeah, isn't that cool? Isn't that
That's
it's
cool.
so cool?
It is
And
cool.
Michael Madsen's in my movie, and
Yes.
and of course he and Quentin are close. So I'm always like uh you know, get Quentin to take, you know, this film in 16 millimeter, which you are in. Michael plays a playwright,
Right. Okay.
which he
Yeah.
usually
Right.
plays a guy with a gun.
Yes.
So he
Yeah.
was really happy to play. He was really happy to play this playwright who has followers in London. It was really fun to shoot. That's why I want to get that movie out there on Netflix because if we can get the deal finished, because he is really good in it, and he's playing a part you wouldn't think of him.
Right.
I did it because you wouldn't imagine him in that role. I put him in that role. I think he's very interesting. He's a good actor.
Oh yes, he is. Yes, I will never forget the scene in Reservoir Dogs. I will never forget the ear
Oh
scene.
my God, I know. And you know, he may hate that I'm saying this, but he cried because he didn't want to do cutting of the
Yes.
ear.
Yeah, actually,
He's
I did hear that he was not
yeah,
happy with it. I also heard that
no.
the band Steelers Wheel was not happy with the use of their song in that scene either.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was such a gory scene and horrifying scene. When I saw it, I was like watching it, and I knew Michael, and I knew Michael was really he actually is a poet, believe it or not. He's written books of poetry that are actually good. I was frightened that they would be horrible. He gave me one. I was like, oh God, what if it's really bad? But it was he's actually a very good poet and he's had a lot of problems, you know, happening in his life. So he's had a lot of, you know, he had a very tragic event. His son killed himself and
Right.
things like that. Really
Yeah.
bad, harsh things to be dealt. But he, you know, he carries on, and he's really it was really interesting because he was very upset. He doesn't like violence, but he's always playing a guy with a gun, and he
I
said, I
know.
just don't want to be the guy with the I don't want to be the guy with a gun. You know, he's like, Jane, that voice. And I
Yeah.
said, okay, well, you'll be the playwright. You're gonna play a playwright. So he loved that, and he's really good in it. So I really want to get that out there. So
Right.
I'll let you know when I do.
Oh, fantastic! Obviously,
Again, he got good reviews. So, and
I don't doubt
he
it.
was bugging me. Why? When is that showing? So, yeah, he's a character, very much a character. Yeah,
All right.
but
Well,
yeah.
speaking of him, I noticed that you have a tendency to use some of the same people. You mentioned Michael, Elena Krauss, Meredith Ostrom, Barry O'Rourke, of course, who passed. Now, was it done on
Oh
purpose?
yeah, Barry.
Yeah, keep using the same people. Is that something of a choice? Is it just out of convenience, circumstance, or?
A choice. I mean, I knew Billy Baldwin from Starbucks. We used to go get coffee in
Okay.
LA when he was. So I kind of know them because I know people who know people, and then we all just, oh, hi, you know, kind of casual. And then I became friendly with him, and he was flying through Europe. So I said, "Why don't you play this role? I'm here." So he did. He came and
Okay.
did me that favor,
Nice.
and I think he's great in it. And he did that. Michael Barry O'Rourke was one of my dearest friends for like since I was about 25 years old, and I'm very close. I was very close with him, and he was in a lot of my film because he was very funny character.
Okay.
So that was harsh. That was kind of hard to deal with. And
Yeah.
then, but yeah, a lot of times, you meet great actors, and maybe they're not big actors, but they're great actors, and you're going to have real color in your movie by adding them, real something extra in your film that adds to the film and is more than just the usual, oh, here's the A-list actor, which I love. If they're a good A-list actor, it's great, but usually they're manufactured. They're manufactured by people who want to make money off them. So,
Right. Right.
You have to go through that. And some are truly, truly talented too, of course.
Right. Now, does it make it easier to work with people that you know?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And I met Judd Nelson through my friend Tana, who plays the lead. They were close friends.
Okay.
And Judd kept writing me, and he goes, "I am this guy. I'm like Tolstoy. I'm no, he wanted to be like the other one, this crazy revolutionary during the Russian Revolution. So he wanted to wear the glasses and have a beard and be really weird and living in the trailer. And he was perfect for it
Yeah, he
because
did a good job. Yeah.
Judd likes to write. He likes to be weird. He likes he goes, I know that I want to be like Trotsky, he told me. And I said, okay, Trotsky it is. I mean, but he was very good. He's a wonderful actor. He's
Yeah.
really
Yes.
good.
It's nice seeing him again.
Very different than the Breakfast Club. But
Yes.
I kind of like what he's doing. I think he's going to be possibly playing Debussy in another film I'm going to do.
Oh,
Older
wonderful.
Debussy.
Okay.
He's
Fantastic.
perfect for it. If you look at Debussy, I have to annoy him and pester him and get him to do it. So, but I know him, so I can do that. Judd, come out of your room you're staying in. So he's always, he's kind of, what I like about him is he's not chasing attention or stardom. He's had his big, huge stardom in the 80s when he did that movie.
Right.
And he's kind of got his priorities right. He's really cares more about other things than just being a big celebrity. So that's really interesting
Oh,
coming
yeah.
from that world
Right. Right.
that he was in for a long, long time.
Awesome.
I like that. Yeah.
So I noticed that most of your films, or actually all your films, are either written by you or co-written by you. Now, how important to you is that you direct your own words and ideas, and is there a screenwriter you would actually want to work with?
Oh, that's interesting. I started, as a writer. I've
Mhm.
always written since I was like 12 years old. I'm always writing little vignettes or
Right.
scenes and that was always what I did. So it's a natural next step to interpret it visually and work with actors to make it come to life. So if you're writing scenes, which or anything, but I guess it's very natural. I worked with a couple of writers, but usually I mean, not to brag or anything, but I'm always usually the lead writer because I come up
Right.
with the idea, and then I work with. Sometimes it's nice to have someone to throw ideas, the screenplay,
Right.
and some are pretty good writers. I wrote one with a writer named John Zeiderman,
Right.
which was Little Noises, and I wrote one with Lucy Shuttleworth, who's a British writer, for The Ninth Cloud, and Barry O'Rourke and I did a script I hope to get done called Please Don't Be Long,
Okay.
based on the Beatles song. It's a comedy. It's very funny. And we're trying to get that set up. Or Barry's not, obviously, but I'm trying to get that set up.
Right.
And but yeah, I usually, if I write with another writer, we have to kind of have a similar vision, or else forget it. It turns
Right.
into a war. You know how it's like, no, it goes this way. No, it goes that way. I don't know. I've never actually written someone else's idea,
Okay.
interpreted it for them.
Gotcha.
I just started on a script that a friend of mine did write the original play, and he wants me to make it into a screenplay. So I'm trying that, but it's difficult for me because when you write it, it's very formed in your mind. But when you're taking someone else's work, it's hard to hold on to what they want and combine it with what you want. So it's much harder,
Right.
put it that
Okay.
way.
All right. All right. Well,
So
let's go ahead and talk about your new film, South of Hope Street. Um, so, real quick, for the benefit of our listeners, can you give us like a quick elevator pitch synopsis of the film?
it's an elevator pitch, believe me. It's you know what? It's about uh, people being very deluded while there is a takeover of their world.
Yeah.
So fascist
Yes.
takeover of their world.
Yeah.
And I wrote it way before any of this, all this weird stuff has been happening. I wrote it years ago, and it's about the mystery of the universe being covered by a giant wall. And so this wall tries to keep people from thinking.
Right.
And this girl, this woman, and every woman played by Tana Frederick, uh, who's barely surviving, and so
Yeah.
she's caught up in trying to make a living or find a way to live. But in the meantime, she keeps noticing there are these two moons in the sky, which is
Right.
a not normal.
No.
And she's saying, "Hey, there's two moons in the sky. Maybe what is that?" And people see it, but they don't want to deal with it.
Right.
So they just want to go with their normal lives. And no matter what happens, they go with the normal routines, which I think people do that when
Yeah.
something weird is happening.
Yeah. It kind of makes you it centers you a little bit. It's easier to deal with the normal, the average.
With weird things happening until we decide to make a decision of what we want to do about these things. And
Yeah.
her character makes the decision to do something about what's happening because she's kind of an observer
Right.
throughout the piece until she finally makes a decision. And even then, her decision's a little late, but at least she's kind of elevated herself, if you know what I mean. If you've gotten to the end of it, she's
Yeah.
elevated herself into uh, thinking instead of ignoring.
Right.
And so it's a very philosophical film, actually, very philosophical. And uh, I don't know. I mean, for me, it's about a lot of what it's symbolic about what a lot of what is going on in the world today. But
Right.
when I wrote it, there were no wars going on
Okay.
in the Ukraine or in Gaza or anywhere. I just wrote it and everybody was going, "You can't do that. Nobody cares about that war thing anymore." And I'm like, well, it's symbolic of an old archaic way of dealing with problems,
Right.
and
Right.
stupid way of dealing with problems, wars. And I can kill more people than you can, therefore I win, you
Right.
know. But then these wars started happening everywhere. And then also I had a lot of things in it that were very that that then tended to like feel okay from the government.
Right.
And then they were talking about then COVID was happening. It's just very strange. Anyway, it's a film about kind of a fascist takeover and one every woman's awakening to it
Right.
and
Okay.
what she does about it.
All right. I do want to bring up the boots. I like the black boots
Oh, the
because
black shoes.
yeah, 'cause that shoes.
The
Yes.
ugliest shoes I could find. Yeah.
Okay. I was going to ask about those. Were those was that a design choice or was it just? But yeah,
It
they
was
were.
I needed something ugly black shoes that are kind of clomping around, and I thought because the fascists are starting to wear them, the
Yes.
people who don't want to look at anything, and so I found these ridiculous disco black shoes in England, like in London, and I ordered like a bunch of them. There and a bunch of the cast took them home, like they'd take
Oh,
one
really?
of them, put
That's
plants in there or something, but they're really weird, the black shoes. Yeah. I was thinking of calling the film The Black Shoes, but they're kind of that was just an idea of noticing this manifestation of the idea, like let's say the red caps, or
Right.
let's say
Yes.
this is what they wear, and you're looking like, what are they wearing that for? And then she finally realizes, okay, there were a lot of them are wearing these stupid black shoes. What does it mean? And they're weird. And so I just got that idea. Also, if you notice, she's reading Sylvia Plath with the
Yes.
poem, Daddy, You Do Not Do Any More Black Shoe. I opened with that idea. I couldn't use the actual poem because it would have
Right.
cost, I would have had to go through the whole thing with her daughter, I don't even know her, but I've heard she's very tough to let people use any of her mother's poems. So I thought,
Right.
I'll just put some symbols together that people who do read it a lot will get it, and people who don't, well, that's okay.
Right.
So, the black shoes representing the Nazis, representing the patriarchy, representing daddy, the whole. And so that's what I was doing, sneaking around. Sneaking around. I think I got away with it. Hope she doesn't hear this. So I go, oh, you used, but I didn't. I never used the actual poem. So
Right. There you go. There you go. But yeah, I was looking at the descriptions of your other films, and this one definitely has it's decidedly different tone. Now,
yeah.
you said you wrote this one a while back. Why the change in tone and themes? I'm just curious.
Oh, because I like to do, first of all, if I have an idea, each film is very different. Like
Mhm.
Little Noises is a black comedy, obviously, because Chrisman's in it. So it's got to be a black comedy. And kind of a little absurdist black comedy. Um, The Ninth Cloud is everybody tells me it's like a French film. Like
Okay.
a girl looking like Amelie running around, kind of with a black coat on she wears all the time to stay away from reality. And then this film, Faces on Mars, is just a madhouse. And then this film is kind of an allegory. It's a science fiction allegory.
Right.
So I don't know. It's just whatever the story dictates, mood wise, I do. But I don't. I'm not a director who you always know. Oh, Jane Spencer did that. It's like a I don't know, you can kind of always tell a Woody Allen film, for
Right.
instance.
Right.
You're not going to see a big sci-fi film by Woody Allen. Maybe. I don't know. Who knows? One of my favorite directors is John Schlesinger. I love
Oh,
John
right.
Schlesinger. And he always did these different things. He always did like Darling or Billy Liar, or all his great films, his early great films always were fascinating. He just did different things. Robert Altman, though he played with a lot of did very different films, like McCabe and Mrs. Miller is very different than a lot of his other films.
Right.
And I love McCabe. That's got to be one of my favorite films ever.
Okay.
McCabe and Mrs. Miller. That's genius level. And I met him a couple of times, and I said, how do you get your political points across so well within the stories that you tell? Because they're not like pounding you on the head or anything.
Right.
Like McCabe and Mrs. Miller is totally against capitalism, but you can't, you have to like figure that out, what happens to McCabe and everything. And he just smiled at me and he goes, infiltrate. This goes, you infiltrate. And I was like, okay. So you put little hints in there about what your story is really about. And that was interesting to me to
Right.
listen. Like his whole thing with Vincent and Theo, which he did. He starts it with Vincent's painting costing millions of dollars. And then he shows Vincent in his little hovel with nothing and scraping together, which is the classic starving artist
Right.
story. I mean, but still he clashes these images and having to do with people making it up that it should be this much money, or they don't care about the artist themselves. It's very interesting in a capitalistic world, which we
Right.
live in.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we certainly do.
Yes.
So a lot of his films, because he came from more the hippie type of people,
Right.
hippie type of people. He was kind of a hippie, actually. I talked to him a couple of times because his film was at Sundance when my film was there. He was doing
Okay.
retrospective, and I wasn't. I was doing my first film, but I talked to him a little bit there, and then I watched him film some of Shortcuts, which was really interesting. Watching
Yes.
him work. Talk about relaxed. His set was so relaxed. He's sitting around eating, watching get up once in a while, go back. A very interesting way of
Wow.
working.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
interesting.
very good. Okay. So I noticed that you opened the film with a Nikola Tesla quote.
Yeah,
Was that an early idea when you started the writing, or did it come about through the writing process? And
came
why?
about. It came about. I had something else there,
Okay.
uh, and then I thought, no, that doesn't quite fit what we actually filmed. You know,
Right.
let's get to the core of what we're talking about. That there's something else that we're not connecting with enough to as humans because we're still stuck in these old routines
Right.
as we are, as you know we are.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Never ending. And because you think we've progressed so much and we're so getting more and more enlightened, and then we go right back to something really stupid
Yes.
that that I won't mention, but that takes over. You may know
Yes.
it, it's orange, but that kind of takes over everything and takes you back.
Right.
Progress stops and it goes backwards again. And he's not the only reason, but I find it very interesting. So I thought his quote was fascinating, and I thought, well, maybe that'll give, because it's kind of a strange film, and strange, but I hope good, because I hope people say, okay, what's going to happen next? What is this? Maybe they want to find out. This is my point, and stay online and watch it. It's more, okay, what is going to happen next? Because
Right.
it's so weird. And so I think I wanted to anchor it with some kind of quote that people would have that anchor and think, okay, this is going to be about something like that.
Gotcha.
So I'll see when it gets there, if it gets there. So,
Okay.
and,
All right.
and some people don't relate to the film, and some people really do. And I've had both cases, and it's interesting to me both ways, because I
Yeah.
think, okay, how come you didn't, gel with the film, or what confused you? Because sometimes they were, or other people are like, I totally got it. And you know what's interesting? A lot of people from countries that had been dominated by, let's say, Russia, or a lot of people from those countries came up to me, and one person was like almost crying and going on about how she totally understood what I meant
Right. Yeah.
about this takeover and this lack of thought. It depends. And some people are like, what's happening here? I don't get it. And I'm like, okay, then don't. I don't care.
Right.
You get
Well,
it or
yeah.
you don't. I can't.
Well, and that's the thing as I was watching, because I watched it 3 times, and every
Oh
time I
God,
watched it, well,
3 times.
yes,
Yeah, you
I
were probably
did.
like, what the hell is this?
Well,
Okay,
no,
yeah.
I want, because every time I watched it, I saw something a little different. Picked up on a different thing.
Oh,
Um,
that's interesting.
there's definitely, I mean, you hit early on the pressure of conformity, with the shoes, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and the influence of news. Like when she says there's a tornado out there, like, well, it wasn't on the news, so there's not a tornado out there. Which I'm like,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
you
That
can
whole
see it; it's right there. There are also a lot
right.
of things going on, a lot of things to say. There's importance of art, free thought, education, the government's use of misdirection with, of course, the war. Here's a war going on, so don't look at the sky, and even some the hints at discrimination with her friend Patrick.
Yes.
So, what one thing do you like? Do you want somebody to get out of this? I mean, what is the one most important thing you have? Somebody watches this, you want them to walk away with?
To an acceptance of the mystery of
Okay.
life, rather than thinking they know everything. That maybe they say, okay, well, maybe there's something I don't quite, that there's a mystery in the universe. And it's not just some guy telling you what the world is,
Right.
because we're all here to find out why we're here,
Right.
basically, or try to, and not just conform to somebody else's system. some group system.
Right.
Even the idea of a money system. I mean, what is it? It's like you better spend all your time working to make the money and not spending your time on maybe something else you might be here for.
Right.
But everybody knows that. But then I notice some of the people who have all that money, they don't go every day, and they can think, they can spend their time the way they want.
Right.
But you'll never have that kind of, or we won't. So there's that kind of thing. I would like for people to think about the mystery of the universe. I mean, and their own existence, and that there's more to it than being told what it is. You
Right.
find it for yourself, really.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
That's what I hope. Anyway, I don't
well,
know.
we spent in our house, we spent a lot of time in recent years focusing on experiences as
Yep.
opposed to stuff.
Yep.
Now, I'm not gonna lie, I have my collections of things. My wife and I are board game aficionados. We have over 500 board games in the house. We have
I
like
love that. That's great.
well, she's actually a partner in a convention, so she helps run 3 different board game conventions in the area. But,
Whoa.
so we
Okay.
have that. We have the movie collection, but recently, we're taking a cruise in the spring, and for our anniversary, we're going to on another trip. So we're focusing a little more on experiences, as
Yes.
opposed to collecting things. So, and I
Yes.
think that's
Yeah.
that's important for open your eyes, look around,
Yeah.
it's the same
Yeah.
old, same old.
Yeah, I think it's super important. I mean, you're alive right now, and I think a lot of I actually am always sitting in front of a computer, and I'm thinking to myself, go to the forest. Why are you just sitting here looking at this screen? Of course I'm trying to write, but
Right,
then if I go to the forest, because there's a lot of forests around Zurich,
right.
Switzerland, you can kind of get recharged, and
Okay.
think it's much better. To go on the ocean is even amazing. Where are you guys going to go? Do you know yet? Or
Caribbean cruise.
oh, nice.
Yes.
I did that. It's wonderful. So
Yeah. We're
good.
excited. It's a Disney cruise. We're big Disney fans,
Okay.
so
Yeah, that's great.
I'm super
No,
excited about that. So
you should be. I only went on a cruise when I was in at university.
okay.
But I went to the Caribbean, and it stays in my mind because it had so much, all the islands, and we went through what was called the Devil's Triangle thing, and
Okay.
there was, but in a storm. So
Oh,
I was like, I was hiding, I think, below deck, but because I was like, oh my God, this is not where I want to have a storm,
right. No, no.
the boat's going like that, the ship is, but it's fascinating. And I went on one more cruise, actually around Africa, not
Okay.
around
Wow.
Africa, but right on the coast of Morocco and all those, about, I don't know, 10 years ago. And that was also amazing. No,
Wow.
no storms,
Yeah.
but
Well, good.
just a different experience. So it's a great thing.
All right. So I have a question about the beginning of the film. Many films give us time to get to know our protagonist before things kind of go sideways. But
Yes.
when we meet Denise, she is already knee deep in her problems. She,
Yeah.
she noticed the black shoes right away, like the very first scene. We see that she's been cutting herself, and she's homeless. Now, was this a writing choice to kind of throw us right in to make us uncomfortable, or was it more based on budget limitations? I'm just curious.
No, it was a writing choice. I
Okay.
wanted to show that she was a misfit.
Yep.
And she's living in this ridiculous situation with her snotty roommates, and
Oh, they were awful. They were
they're
awful.
horrible. They're horrible. They're based on some college roommates I had who
I was going
shall
to ask about that actually.
who shall remain nameless, but performance artists, and I was like, oh, but yeah. So I based it actually completely on them. Even some of the things they say, like you have to move out, and I remember saying something like I don't know, I said, but I can't. I mean, and no, it was something about my boyfriend or something, and then they said, no, their boyfriend, because their boyfriend's moving in, and I said, yeah, but and then she goes, "Don't worry, it's not a committed relationship." Like I would be worried about that. Like I would be worried, right, about her relationship when she's kicking me out. And then I have, of course, Hannah says, I wasn't worried about that. And then she's completely in her own universe,
Right. Right.
and I know people, I knew people like that my whole life. But, and those she's such a great artist thing going on with her show. Um, with aluminum foil everywhere, But what I was trying to do was kind of show her as a misfit. She
Right.
definitely was a misfit. She's lost her job at the bank. Her only friend is the weird-looking Patrick,
Right.
who is also treated badly, and he kind of reflects her misfit thing. And then she also is sleeping in the corner of the room. They gave her the corner, and so and then she becomes homeless, literally becomes homeless, and has to stay with idiot after idiot until she finally the clowns, and then she finally ends up with at Judd's place, which is a kind of a torn up little shack.
Right.
And they're all misfits. So she finds her family in a way, the misfit family. And then they leave to go to the mountains, which is where the misfits gather.
Right.
So who want to know something, who are the artists, and some who are trying to figure out what's going on and what to do about it. So
Okay.
that's what, if they can do anything.
Right.
And and we had a great time. We shot in the Alps, the Swiss Alps.
Nice.
And that old hotel was like The Shining. It really was. Nobody was there.
Oh,
We
wow.
were like all like in this creepy, really old, giant hotel in the mountains. But we made, we could do everything there. We had the cast there, the crew. Everybody had rooms. Judd wouldn't come out of his room because of ghosts. But we really, it felt like The Shining. It was very strange.
Wow.
But yeah, it was a great experience when I think about it. Also, we lost Janine. I lost I lost a cast member, Janine, the strange looking guy. He passed away
Okay.
a month ago. But
Oh, okay.
he had a disease, a degenerative disease, which is why he struggled with things. So he was wonderful. He did a
Yeah.
couple of my films, met him in acting class when I was 26.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay.
It's like I know him forever. But yeah, that was kind of sad. But yeah, it was a real group ensemble. We were all working together to get this idea out, hopefully.
Right. Right. Okay. So you did mention earlier that you thought about calling the film Black Shoes. So why did you end up with South of Hope Street?
That was my first title for the script.
Okay.
And I kept thinking, well, that sounds like some novel, or that sounds like some summer story of, I don't know, Faulkner or something. I don't know. I was trying to think, and I was thinking it's really not. And everybody said, well, but it's not a real science fiction movie either.
No, it's
more
not.
It's not. It's more of a philosophical movie. So we came up with various titles, but we finally just said, let's just call it what it was on the script, South of Hope Street, and ultimately meaning they're all living away from hope, and then they're looking for hope, and then they find hope. I think a lot of people interpret the ending a lot of different ways, but for me, they've elevated to find some kind of hope for themselves in change.
Yeah, that was kind of what I got. It was
good.
What the rest of the movie is. It definitely has a not a typical Hollywood happy ending, but there's definitely there's hope there. There's light at the end of the tunnel, kind of a thing. So yeah.
Well, that's what I was kind of going for. They're not dying. A lot of people go, "Oh, they're dying and going to heaven." I said, "No, they're not dying. They're just it's symbolic that they are going into a more hopeful existence, really, together,
right.
Thinking, getting away from the stuff that was going on before, and after they see the universe a little bit, they get that peek into the universe."
Right.
And of course, Baldwin never learns, but
no, of course
Baldwin,
not.
he's scared of it, so he walks away from it. But he's great. I like Billy.
Yeah, I got to say, as I was watching him, he looks more and more like Alec The older
I
he gets.
know.
Oh
I
my,
have
it's
to tell
scary.
you, I kept calling him Alec, and he's like, Billy. I kept going, okay, Alec, go over here. He's like, it's Billy. And I went, yes, you're Billy. I know. He's a great actor, Billy, in his own right. And he's
Yes.
done some wonderful work. And so I felt really bad because I kept going, it was just an accident because I kind of know a little tiny bit Alec. I know Billy very well. I know Steven,
Okay.
who's a very he's kind of left he's kind of left that side of the family as far as politics. He's pro-Trump and he's always at the standing around with a Bible. And that's okay. It's all right, but it's
Right.
very different than than Billy and Alec, certainly different than Alec, who was
Right. Oh
playing
yeah.
Trump on Saturday Night Live. So Billy also very left wing, and Daniel I've never met, so I know three of them, but I
Gotcha.
know two of them, but I kind of know of Alex a little bit. So, but anyway, yeah, he looks more and more like Alec. He does to the point, and it's the voice too,
Yes. Oh yes.
and the inflection and everything. It's funny, but you can tell they're all brothers. That's for sure. They all
Oh
look,
yeah.
they're so similar. It's very interesting group growing up in Long Island together.
Yeah. I started watching the movie, like his first scene, and they're having that drink, and I'm like
Oh
going,
yeah.
it was so hard to see him because I kept seeing Alec instead. I'm like, but I know
I
it's
know, I know, I know. Alec would have been good too, but Billy was great in that because he's like wanted to play the baddie. I said, okay, you're this creep who goes along with the system, and you try
right.
to. You're not the leader, but you're one of the arm. You're one of the people who go along with it,
Right.
and uh and Angelo was also quite good, and the guy that plays the professor towards
Right.
the end, he's very moving. It was his first acting job, so
Yeah, he
of
did
all the
well. I
I
was
think he
jealous of
did
his
pretty
hair. I
well.
liked his hair. I was jealous of
Oh,
his
I gotta tell him. Someone noticed your hair, man. You know,
hair.
I know because he was a professor. So what do professors do? They have the hair and then they have the
Right.
jacket with the little patchwork jacket he wore, and it was perfect. But yeah, so he actually won an award for his new coming best new
Yes, I
actor
saw that.
at Siena, which was wonderful. And I almost called him Alec. Billy won Billy won an award at Siena,
Right.
and so did Tana. So I had three actors who won awards for their work because it's a
Now,
very arty festival at Siena. So that was nice.
so how important, I know, how important is the festival circuit in getting your film seen and picked up, for a distributor? How important is that?
Uh, it's super important, but it's harder than ever to get in the bigger festivals because the bigger festivals tend to already have a lot of their programs pre-programmed with
Okay.
Almodovar or I don't know, Kate Blanchett or whatever,
Right.
whatever they're doing. And they're already set. So maybe there's like three little places for new filmmakers
Yeah.
or three little, and so they're more difficult. Sometimes it happens, and there are different sections that you might get into, like at Cannes. They have Directors Fortnight, which takes newer films,
Okay.
meaning people that aren't celebrities, and
Gotcha.
bigger celebrities. But I think the smaller festivals, not so small that they're not heard about or they're weird, but the smaller festivals like Rome, well, Rome is getting bigger, or like Siena, like Glasgow,
Okay.
Rain Dance. Those are great festivals, and they are open to uh, films that, like my film, The Ninth Cloud, was at Glasgow. It was at Rain Dance. It was in Shanghai, of all places. I never thought I'd visit China. So I flew to China, and before all this other stuff started happening politically, um, I think it was 2014. I flew to China for The Ninth Cloud,
Okay.
and it was quite interesting. They they're little, I thought it was like, just a film festival, little film festival. They treat it like the Oscars. They've got like, it's huge. They make a big
Wow.
thing out of everything there. And that was interesting.
Huh.
And the Communist Party was also interesting.
Oh, I'm
Like you're
sure.
sitting there and you're like, oh, okay. They get up there and they stand real straight and they go, we have a new, they go, the Ninth Club by Jane Spencer. you know, and I'm like, God, this is fucking weird. And then, excuse my language, but it was like, okay, he's standing really stiff. And then he came back and he was relaxed with me, the guy who was with us, the
Right.
Chinese guy. And then it was very structured, let's say.
Okay.
They didn't
Gotcha.
dare say anything they weren't supposed
Yeah.
to say. I noticed that. You could not mention certain things like Tiananmen Square. You
Right.
could not even mention that. And some people didn't know it even happened.
Oh, wow. Okay.
There's a blackout on information. So I was like shocked by that, but I just said, okay, I'm quiet. I'm leaving. I want to get out of the country. So I don't want to get stopped for like anything. And everything's monitored, your emails,
Oh, wow.
it's
Jeez.
very different. It's very different. Very different.
Yeah.
You know, maybe not anymore. We'll see how that goes. But it's very interesting. In answer to your question, I think film festivals are super important to raise awareness of the film, because there's so many films now, because it's so much easier to make film
Right.
with digital
Right.
than when I made Little Noises on film, and it's very the competition is huge. And how do you raise interest levels on
Right.
certain things? Obviously, you can do it with actors if you can get bigger actors, but usually if you have a lower budget,
Right.
there's that. So you have to get people to work for less than they would normally work for. So if you're doing a low budget film, but I think it's super important. I think now, though, with all the different streaming things, I think there are ways to. You usually have to hire a publicist,
Yeah.
as I did. That's how you know me.
Yes.
Deborah
Yeah.
Gilels works with me with this movie quite a bit.
Okay.
Now you hire a publicist and you do as much publicity as you can for as long as you can, and try to get the movie noticed.
Right.
And I think the festivals help do that. Like if you win awards, you can put it on your people might think, oh, okay, so maybe that's worth watching.
Right.
Got some awards, not from Podunk Award, but from a good award, you know, at least a decent festival. It doesn't have to be the Venice Film Festival.
Right. Right.
So it'd be nice if it is, but it doesn't have to be. You know, but I think it's important, yeah. But I think it's harder and harder because even Sundance has become catering. I find that they're catering to a lot of celebrities and distribution companies where it's already got a distribution company and they just screen it there to get more interest in it.
Yeah, that's too bad.
It is. I said there should be a festival just called the Unknown Festival, where you just submit your film. You don't say who did it. And
Okay.
everybody watches these films, and the best films get in, and they announce who did it later. And I was like, I just thought it was fascinating if people just saw these films and didn't know who made the films.
Yeah.
And didn't judge it on, okay, I've got to take it because it's, I don't know, whoever, Ethan Hawke or something, you know, I got to take that film.
Right. Right.
And if it sucks, you know, and if it's great, it's great. No matter who it is, you know.
Right.
And then anyway, an idea that I'll never do because I'm not doing a film festival.
I'm sure you could find people to help you out with that. I'm sure you could find people to do that.
Maybe I could. Probably all the irritated filmmakers I know,
Yes.
you know, and famous ones, to just see, okay, if I make this movie, I won't automatically have it, you know, released. Let's see what it really is. Let's see,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
I loved what Coppola did with Megalopolis. I thought that was amazing that he did such a weird film.
Right.
I don't know if the film worked as well as maybe he wanted it to, but I thought it was such an interesting experiment.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. Yeah. And he's one of those directors that for me are hit or miss. It's like it's either really, really or, you know,
or not.
Yeah. Okay.
Me too. But I recognize that he's made his masterpiece, The Godfather. He made his masterpiece, no doubt.
Right.
So, so he can do whatever he wants now. If you make something like that, it kind of frees you up. I don't know if he feels that way. Probably
Yeah.
not.
Well, yeah. So you have to have somebody to pay for it, of course. But that was going to be my question. As an independent filmmaker, especially with your most recent film, what was the biggest hurdle in getting it made? Was it the money? Was it the getting the people there? Was it, what was the hardest part of this film?
I tell you something really weird. I couldn't get the film made for many years. I wrote it a long time ago, and I put it away.
Okay.
Yeah, because I couldn't get it made, so I thought I'm going to put my energy into something else. And I got it to some people who were quite, well-known actors and people, and I was really thinking, okay, I'll get this made. But it was such a strange idea. Everybody's like, okay, how do I make money with this? And so I
Right.
didn't get it made. So I come to Switzerland and I think, you know what? This place is visually very interesting. What if I take South of Hope Street, make it? The minute I decided that I was going to make it on a minimal budget with equity,
Mhm.
find equity, suddenly I started getting equity. I don't know. It was almost like weird, like I called this person who has a group of, believe it or not, housewives. They'd hate to be called that, but in Atlanta, Georgia, and they have very
Okay.
wealthy husbands and they all want to make films. So they put a bunch of money together and they said, let's make this one.
Huh.
And they sent me money to get going. And they were friends, but it was weird. You know what I mean? It's like
Right.
not a normal way. And then I went to someone else and they said, "Oh, I'll kick in 20,000 or I'll kick in, and then I met this investor who was from real estate here. And he doesn't want his name to be mentioned because then people bother him. But with real estate, and I took a meeting with him. A friend introduced me to him, a producer on the project, Patricia Reinhardt, introduced
Mhm.
me to him. And there's a lot of people here in Zurich who happen to have a lot of money in Switzerland,
Mhm.
in certain. And he just said, I like it, I'll do it. And I went, what? What? You know what I mean? It's like
Right.
being in Hollywood a while, that doesn't happen. They don't just
Right.
go, I like it, I'm doing it. Didn't ask me for anything, didn't ask me for uh, any kind of brochure to show how he would get his money back. So being a bit conscientious, I said, well, it's film. There's no guarantee that if you put
Right.
in that much money, you're going to get it back. I don't know. I'll do my best and I'll put actors who are known in it and I'll do the best I can. But I can't say that, it's film because it was his first film.
Okay.
And he said, that's okay. I can lose that much. And I went, that never happened to me in my life, in like ever. And because
Wow.
it was always a struggle to get $10,000, he basically financed the whole film with
Oh, wow.
equity.
Crazy.
Crazy is right. I told him, I said, listen, even to get a distributor, he helped do that. But I guess what I'm trying to say is he had a lot of faith in the project. He loved the idea of the project and he put money up for the project,
Hmm.
hoping to get money back. And I hope, I'm working on it,
Right.
but it's going to be slow going because it's streaming, and unless something happens that kicks it off into a higher possibility of making money, it's hard for filmmakers to make money right now with streaming. I'll be
Right.
honest.
Yep.
But we hope we can pull something off. And there's always India. Yeah, we get people to watch it there. How many thousands and people? So we're working on it. We have uh, it's all over the world. It's going to be. We should be able to do okay. But I'm just saying, I got really lucky to make South of Hope Street. My other films were far more difficult to
Right.
finance
Okay.
because of no one stepped up and said, I'll finance your film with equity. Nobody did that. And
One.
here yeah. So, because usually it's pre-sales and then you do this and then you do that. And pre-sale market is pretty dead. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so you have to put everything together or you try to get funds out of European countries. Also more difficult than you'd know because they have their little rules and what needs to be Swiss, what needs to be this, what needs to be that, what actors you can and cannot use. And then often humor is very different in each country.
Yeah.
I match up with British humor, American humor, but Swiss, very Germanic.
Oh, okay. Okay.
They're very like, I showed a comedy here once at a festival and there was no laughter at all. And I was like,
Oh,
oh,
no.
what? And then this woman came up, she goes, this is so sad. The way they have to live. And I was making fun of them the whole movie
Right.
because they were ridiculous. And you wouldn't feel sorry for these characters if you saw them. They were like a bunch of Xenias,
Okay.
the roommates. And I'm like, sad? And she goes, yeah. And then somebody walked up and she goes, nobody lives like that. Surely they have bank accounts. I said, have you been to Silver Lake, Los Angeles? No, they don't have 30,000s in their bank account,
Right.
So
Right.
every country is so different here in Europe,
Right.
so kind of have to focus. I focus on British, American, and then if it works in France or it works somewhere else, great,
Right.
but
Okay.
but that's kind of it.
So before we wrap up, I know you mentioned a couple of projects you're trying to get done. What's the next one where we should expect to see from you?
Well, I hope you'll see. I'm working on a project called The Red Weather, which
Okay.
is kind of something that I think is one of my more commercial, not commercial, more. It's a family drama, and
Okay.
it takes place in Italy.
Okay.
And I think it's a very strong piece about tolerance. There's a lot of intolerance all over the world right now regarding immigrants and things like
Right.
that. And it's called The Red Weather. And we've got some really wonderful people interested in doing it.
Oh,
So
great.
we're packaging it right now. I have a company interested in putting up the money. A company, not a person. He disappeared now. No, but and so I'm really excited about that. I'm working on that with my partner, my husband, Mark Holthuizen, who's a producer,
Mhm.
but also with producers Stephen Adams, he's out in LA, and
Okay.
Grace Melio and Daniela Jasprikas. They're all European except for Grace and Stephen. But we're working. I just went to the Berlin Film Festival and we did a lot of meetings about the red weather
Okay.
because the market, and so that's getting a lot of attention. And I'm doing a film called The Velvet Gentleman
Okay. Right.
about the composer Eric Satie,
Okay.
crazy French eccentric composer Eric Satie, with Toulouse-Lautrec running around with Jean Cocteau, running around with all these people. And I've got the great French actor Jean-Hugues Anglade to
Okay.
play the lead
Okay. Right.
as older Satie. Do you know his work at all? He did
I
Betty Blue.
No, I'm not too familiar with him, but I did see that he was in one of your other films. I did see he was.
He was in The Ninth Cloud.
That's right.
But
Okay.
he was also in Queen Margot. He won Cannes. He's a great actor. He's
Okay.
really brilliant. And he'll play the older Eric Satie, and then Rosanna Arquette and her daughter Zoe.
Oh, wonderful.
Zoe Blue Seidel. She's incredible. I met with her yesterday in Paris because I was coming back, and I met with her, and we met near Eric Satie's home in Paris.
Okay.
We had food in a restaurant that was built in 1901.
Wow.
When he lived there. So we had our food right there in the neighborhood. So it was really cool because
Oh, that's great.
all these artists used to hang out there. So, but it's a great story, I think, about not Jean Cocteau, but he's in it, but about Eric Satie and Suzanne Valadon, the artist.
Okay.
And it's a love story. And I'm doing that. And then I'm doing I'm only got one more, a crazy comedy called Please Don't Be Long, I told you about.
Right.
About your people get lost in the mountains in a limo, ridiculous people who hate each other. So there's that one. And that's it. That's what I'm working on. But it's all a lot.
Oh, no, that's good. It's good. It's good to be working.
We'll see, whichever one goes. Hopefully this year I shoot that. So that's how you look as a filmmaker. You just see what you can put together that works with that gets your finance, and then you go, and
Gotcha.
hopefully before you're 98 or something. It's like, oh my God, everything takes so long. Each film, I'd say, every film was like 5 years or 3 years. You really have to work to get it going. But I think I'll be able to shoot something this year in the fall.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful.
One of them's going to go. So we'll see which one. But yeah, so that's what I'm up to.
Fantastic. Well, I want to thank you so much for spending time with me and sharing
fun.
insights and your and talking about your movies and your history. So thank you so very much for talking with me.
Well, thank you, because you're one of the more interesting people I've talked to.
Oh, wonderful.
About
thank
film, because you know a lot about it and a lot about music and film in it. So it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that. So yeah, I consider myself a movie nerd and a music nerd, and I'm proud of it.
You should be. We need many more of you. You'd be on that mountain in south of Hope Street with all the others.
Yes, I would have been up there because
music, film, and poetry. Yeah, you would have been there. in the van.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
With Judd.
I need to get a VW van for myself. I've been wanting one for years.
You should, because there's that feeling, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Because I got all that old
I have
music.
shirts that have the VW bus on them all the time. I love it.
Oh, I love those. I love those. I love the whole music thing. We got to use some of Donovan's stuff.
Yes,
all this old stuff, because I was trying to hook up the guys in the mountains to kind of the retro thing.
Right.
And so that was kind of fun.
Yes, that was a great way to open the movie.
weird song like that. Well, thank you. Anyway, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
When I look out my window.
The Docking Bay 77 podcast is produced and edited by Dayton Johnson. Recorded with Rode Pod mics, the Zoom PodTrack P4, and edited on Audacity. Opening music provided by Eric Jason Brock. You can find him on YouTube and Bandcamp. Thank you for listening.